Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL Clash of the Correspondents. Today, I have two of our correspondents with us looking forward to a big game at the weekend in game week 24. Firstly, we're joined again after the Frank Lampard sacking by our Chelsea correspondent at Rotation FPL, Ted, who has returned on his university Wi-Fi. How are you, Ted?
I'm good, thanks, mate. 10 grand a year and they can't give us Wi-Fi, eh?
You don't get much for 10 grand a year these days, mate.
You don't.
And we're also joined by Simon Bibby at FPL Footballer, our Newcastle United correspondent. How are you, Si?
Very well, James.
Looking good.
Chatting about our impending double game week in 26.
Well, it's worth saying we are pre-recording this on Wednesday. So by the time this goes out, we don't know if you've got a double game week or not. But if let's assume that Brighton did beat Leicester last night, then yes, Newcastle probably do have a double game week 26 to look forward to. Although if they lost, we probably look forward to maybe using you a bit more in game week 29, possibly, which we'll come on to. But Ted, must start with yourself. 4 games in now under Tuchel, 10 points won, 1 goal conceded quite brilliantly by Antonio Rudiger. How are we feeling about the regime so far?
It'd be rude to complain, wouldn't it, when you've got results like that coming in? It's not perfect, let's be honest. We might be racking up sort of 60, 70, 80% possession, but it's not exactly convincing wins where we're putting teams to the sword. But I think that's to be expected when you're playing a back three, as we are. I did touch on it before when I was talking to you a couple of weeks ago, saying, it's great to have a back three because you get that protection behind the fullbacks and you can push up or whatever, but you're going to have some attacking problems as well. So we'll have to see what Tommy can do with that.
Yeah, I know when we spoke, I mentioned it as I could see the way forward for you going that way with Chilwell and James as wing backs. You weren't keen because you feel like you lose an extra attacking player, basically. One of the things that was interesting when I was editing back, I kind of bit my fingers when I heard myself say, yeah, in these next 4, mate, you'll keep at least 3 clean sheets. I was like, that was brave. And actually, bar Rudiger's moment of madness, it would have been 4. So the flip is you must be happy with what's happening defensively, or is the loss of Thiago Silva a bit of a hammer blow from that perspective?
Losing him's always going to be a big hit because he's so important in our defence. I absolutely love him. It's rumoured that he could be back for Sheffield United, but he's been saying that that's probably not the case. So we'll see about that. But I mean, I can't be too happy about only conceding 1, given the fact, okay, coming into it, we're thinking we should keep clean sheets, but we've got 5 defenders and 2 defensive-minded midfielders on the pitch. I mean, if we're conceding goals there, we've got a big problem, mate. So, yeah, I'm not going to go too wild over it.
I feel like it's been difficult to gauge because kind of what I said, we did expect some clean sheets for you here. There's a game at the weekend where you'd obviously hope for another one on Monday night, but then beyond that, the fixtures get a bit more difficult. I mean, where do you stand on, we might as well get straight into it, the Chilwell and James problem that a lot of FPL managers are going to be kind of stuck in at the moment. Si's raising his hands. I think he's got Ben Chilwell. I mean, I don't know where to start with it. I keep saying probably hold this week and sell afterwards, but any thoughts on what's happening now?
Yeah, so I mean, we've had Hudson-Odoi and Alonso, Hudson-Odoi and Chilwell, James and Chilwell, and James and Alonso all trialled so far. And none have been, they've all done well. None of them have been a particular standout. So, yeah, who knows? If I was Tommy, I'd certainly be playing Chilwell, I think, because I do really like him. I think Alonso in the back 5 is so massively more viable than Alonso in the back 4. But he's still got problems, I'll say. But yeah, if you're paying, what is he now, 6.2 million, Chilwell? Something around there, isn't it?
I think if I sold him now, I'd going to get 5.9 for him, which was what I paid, I think. It's dropped.
Right. Well, it's still, it's a lot of that for a defender that you're not even sure is fully nailed. And for that sort of price, I'm looking for clean sheets and goals. Nailed should be already dead set certain. So yeah, for me, I wouldn't own him at all. I don't know what your team's like. I don't know who you've got, what your chip strategy is. But for me, I'm looking to shift money onto my bench at the moment, and I need absolutely every single penny I can get. So I wouldn't be able to spend 5-6 mil on a defender like that.
What's your thoughts on him, Si, as an owner?
I'm waiting for you, James, to tell me when I can make a transfer this week. The other pod. So as soon as the cup games are out, I've got Ben Mee in last week, and I've kind of earmarked that spot for maybe another Burnley defender. So I might go down to Luton. I haven't got any Spurs guys in. I know.
Forget that, mate. Jesus.
I've still got Wilson as well, which is a bit of a headache. But to be honest, I got 2 transfers this week, and I'm pretty happy with my starting 11. I don't have a bench boost, so
it's still going to be with those with 2 free transfers. It's still going to be a good week to roll one.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to get. We can have a good indication. I mean, perfect example is Ted. If your team win at Barnsley in the cup, I think we can say 99% confidence that your game with Liverpool in 29 will move to 26 because you're both competing in Europe. They can't take the risk on moving it into later. Whereas in your case, if Brighton did win last night, it's likely that your game with Brighton will go into 26, but it's not as certain as it would be for Chelsea, for example, because neither you or Brighton are in European competition. It's likely that will happen, but it could go into 27, could go into 28, could go into afterwards, could go into 30.
I was just messing about when I made that opening statement because I want people to invest in my Newcastle boys. I feel like I come on these pods most of the time and we've got a game where I've got no chance of actually winning.
So that's potentially tell me why I should buy Callum Wilson then.
Well, I mean, he's top 5. To be honest, I'm right. I'm ranked about 300,000 at the moment. I've had Callum Wilson. I've transferred him in 3 times this season.
Wow.
But because of his ownership, he's potentially a big reason why I'm not languishing down in the sort of million plus spots, is having that kind of player that goal involvement wise, he's always going to be in there amongst it. I think he's still amongst the top percentage of goal involvement players. When he's fit, he's going to start every game, and hopefully now with the Willock signing, and if we can get our kind of attacking midfielders all fit and firing, you think still a decent option, like a third striker option.
Have we got any word yet on the injury? Because obviously he went off injured at the weekend against Southampton.
It's a problem he's been managing, I think, for the last 3 or 4 games. He came off early in a previous game, and no, to be honest, I just checked his FPL flag still 75%. I think it's unlikely. He'll play if he couldn't last half an hour. But no, I haven't got any injury news for you. But to be honest, given it's a double game week and they're away at Chelsea, I think if you've got him, you'd be benching him anyway, which is potentially what I'm going to do.
Yeah, quite positive.
I don't think I'll burn a transfer to get him out. I think I'll wait on that one. He's a good price for Ings as well, I guess, if you've got that extra bit of cash and you're thinking about next week.
Do you feel with the Everton and Southampton wins that you're safe now?
Yeah, thereabouts. To be honest, looking at the bottom 3 and the worst 3 teams in the league, I was never really that concerned about us getting relegated this season, despite Bruceyball and what that kind of brings from a kind of game-to-game basis. I always was confident we'd get at least the 39, 40 points required. It's heartwarming, should we say, to see a performance like against Southampton, particularly I think that was the most Newcastle win you could imagine. Playing well, going up, score a third, go 3-1 up, and then give away the stupidest red card decision. Like, don't get me started on Hendrick, man. I don't know.
I'll get you started.
I think I ranted about him for 20 minutes last time I was on this, but I just don't know what he does in the team, really. Like, compare it to some of the other central midfielders, and I was chatting to a couple of Arsenal fans about whether Willock can play in a 2 in midfield, and apparently they've never seen it. But you'd hope if he can kind of adapt to that kind of role, that's kind of his spot in the team, really, rather than taking one of the Fraser, Almiron or St. Maximin when he's fit, sort of midfield slots. You'd hope he'd find a way to eventually play those 3 behind Wilson and get Willock in the team as well, because his legs, you can tell he's a runner, and I think that's kind of where our team's at our best, when we've got those kind of powerful runners that can hit teams on the counter-attack.
In the Everton, Palace and Southampton games, we saw something quite different from Newcastle in terms of particularly off the ball offensively. Is this Steve Bruce or is Graeme Jones now coaching this team as the assistant manager? Because it was such a sudden change in the Everton game, then particularly the start of the Palace game, then again at the weekend. It's like, oh, these guys actually look like they're following instruction. Whereas in the past, you've mentioned like you win one game, you know he's going to pick the same team the next week. He doesn't change anything from there. Then it's shit. And he's like, oh, I must change something. Whereas it actually felt like there was tactical pressing instruction off the ball. It was nice to see. It feels like it's not come from Bruce. Is that fair?
I mean, you'd be hard pressed to get me to give Bruce any credit whatsoever at the best of times. I don't know. It's a weird one. I think that a first-team coach would come in and then would immediately have like a philosophy change in how they play. I don't know. It seems like the logical variable is he came in, we decided to play a different way. Bruce has been talking for months about, how he's not had an opportunity to play it his way. And yeah, you've got to draw some conclusion that he's come in, he's been able to like coach the players like a 10-year-old school teacher would, in terms of being able to like get a bit of a higher press and press as a team. And I think it's that. I also think playing Almiron in kind of more of a, when he plays in the central attacking midfield position, I saw a stat the other day that he's got 6 attacking returns in 8 games playing as a CAM, whereas, that percentage drops off massively when they start sticking him out on the wings and stuff. So I think a bit of a combination of both. He's obviously hit some really good form. It's his birthday actually today, so happy birthday, Miggy, if you're listening.
Happy birthday, Miguel. Thanks for giving us all COVID when you finally scored. Cheers.
What's that about?
I kept saying, didn't I? He'd never score, but when he eventually scores, it will be Armageddon. It's like the end of the world because it will never happen. Right. He scored, and then with bloody coronavirus, mate. So
no, it's not it. He scores and he has a baby. That's what he does. So yeah, he's also just announced he's having a baby boy today as well. So a big day in the.
Congratulations, Miguel. That's what we'll have to call this pod. Congratulations, Miguel. To be honest, we've joked about him a lot, Almiron. In terms of lack of composure in front of goal and stuff, which he showed really well in the goal at the weekend. But one of the reasons I've been kind of happy to take the piss out of him is actually because I quite like him. He's quite a likeable footballer. He runs his dogs off for the team every single game without fail. And that idea of him playing kind of as a 10, that allows the press because he works so hard. He's the instigator in terms of, you've had kind of Wilson going into right, St. Maximin left, then it becomes a midfield 3 sometimes without the ball. And they work in tandem to go and press as a team. And a lot of it is instigated by him and what he does off the ball. He's got an infectious personality, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. He's like, he was a fan favourite before, but like you look at what he managed to do in that win over Southampton. We went down to 9 men. He was everywhere, left back, right back, still trying to lead the press. Yeah, fantastic. He's in good form. And I think at the start of this season, I came on and I was bigging up St. Maximin as kind of, he's the one that could take a leap. But I think it's been Almiron this season that's kind of showed that, if we play him in his right position and play, to his strengths, that, he can potentially take us up a level.
So do you think that now means we're looking at possibly the idea of a diamond with St. Maximin up front with Wilson, or do you expect St. Maximin to stay on the left?
No, I think he's been playing Fraser up there. So I think this new found revamped formation and sort of style, I think you need those two at the front to lead the press, and it's really an attacking midfield player. As long as you don't put Joel Linton up there with Wilson, I think we're right. So you've got a couple of players that can play there. Almiron can play there, but I think he's better deeper because of that pressing that he does and his energy. He can get up and down the pitch. He's more box to box than the other guys. I just want to see those those front 3 behind Wilson playing in a game, as I said, if we can get Willock in the team as well, because we've got nothing else to play for this season, and we should be 1 or 2 wins away from feeling comfortable. So why not try it out? And we've got no centre backs either as well. So best form of defence is attack, I think, for us until we can get some of our kind of regular centre backs back fit.
Is there anything for you, Ted, concerning that in that aspect? In terms of you played 4 teams really who all wanted to sit off the ball. Really, I know Sheffield United pressed a little bit, particularly later in the game and stuff. But generally, wanted to sit off the ball, and commonly that's what we'd associate with Newcastle over the last probably 4 or 5 years or so. But it feels like there's a sea change in them now, literally over the last 10 days or so. Are you concerned with, like you said, without Thiago, we assume will probably be absent for the game on Monday, that what will happen to people like Christensen under pressure?
Yeah, Yeah, I think it's always a bit of a worry when you've got a back line that's a bit nervy, knowing what they'll do. But frankly, I'm more than happy for teams to come out. I'm going to end up falling asleep if I get another game where these teams just sit back. And at halftime during the Spurs game, I was saying, I really hope Spurs come out and attack us second half, because then you're going to see more movement off the ball. You're going to see more chances opening up, which I think may well suit us. I think regardless of what the opposition do, we're more than capable of suffocating a game at the moment. We've got enough bodies there to move the ball around and keep it safe and keep recycling it and whatever you need. So if need be, I'm sure we can end up forcing a team back. But yeah, if a team wants to come out, and Newcastle have got good players, they can certainly do it well. Then yeah, power to them. I want to see it.
We should clarify that we're not, Newcastle suddenly hasn't developed into like a, Gengen pressing Klopp style football. It's literally just not sitting on the edge of our penalty box in 2 banks of 4 or 2 banks of 5, as it were. It's just having a few players go and press. It's not like a revolution there. I'm not expecting us to go out and kind of try and nick the ball off, your centre back. So although, you look at the goals against Southampton and that kind of was the case. So yeah, maybe I'm not giving them enough credit, but just want to see him be brave and kind of have a go, really. There's nothing else to play for at the moment.
It's nice to see a Newcastle team though that's got so many, there's players there that I really, really rate. You've got the creativity of Willock and Fraser. You've got Almiron. You've got St. Maximin. You've got Wilson. There's some really class players there going forward. And I've always looked at Newcastle as being such a, solid defence with like Lascelles and whoever else in that back line. But I'm really, for the first time in a long while, looking at Newcastle forward line and going, hey, you know what? They've done a good job there to get some talent there.
James, you let me know when I can have my Bruce rant, because I think that kind of falls directly into it. You look at all the media commentators, and like Jamie Redknapp is the fucking worst, but there is a lot of them out there that constantly perpetuate this notion that Steve Bruce is doing a great job and no one could come in and do any better, and what's Rafa going to do if he comes back in? But like Ted's just said, we've got the players, and now they're kind of stumbling into this system that kind of suits the players. And I think if you got a better coach in, this team would be, top half. And the injuries as well that we've suffered, that you can draw a straight line between the backroom staff that Bruce has got in and what Rafa had in, and the injury record is night and day. And that's, predominantly because of the way that the club set up on that side. We had it before Rafa, we've had it after Rafa. He just spent the money and invested in a medical team that were looking after the players and were able to kind of validate whether they were fit enough. And you've already seen a couple of players come back and break down, Wilson being one of them. We've had it with Dummett. He's now one of our only 2, he's more of a hybrid centre-back, fit centre-backs against Chelsea. And I think that's what it will come down to the weekend, is the fact that, Kieran Clark's got a yellow flag on FPL, so we might actually only have 1 fit centre-back.
Yeah. Ashley, do you want to add anything to that? Because it feels like we always have to mention him when we do a pod review.
I don't know what there is to say, really. Like, predictably, didn't spend any money in January. I think everyone saw that. The problem is, the longer this goes on, that he wants to sell the club, and there's rumours or there's potentially talks in the background. And like, I haven't worked with Newcastle. I know that there is certain things that I've been asked to do which suggest that it was something that was genuinely going to happen, and that's just from like digging into data and stuff. But like, it's genuinely there was some procedures that were put in place to kind of do that due diligence. But the longer this rolls on, I think he has to stick or twist, right? He has to put some investment into it. If he's going to back Bruce, he needs to back him and give him a bit of money. Otherwise, he needs to make a management change so that the club can move forward, or he just needs to sell and get the fuck out.
Who do you think it was his decision or Bruce's decision himself to bring Graeme Jones in?
Rumours are that it was not Bruce's decision, and I think if you look at that interview that he did, I can't remember which game it was, after the game, he got very shirty with the interviewer when they asked him about that appointment. You know how like most managers say, like, I can't talk about appointment because it's not signed, whatever. He didn't give it the kind of the standard black response. He was quite angry about it. And I think that revealed that maybe it wasn't necessarily his decision, that someone above him has come and said,
I read Bruce's statement at the time, and a lot of the quotes from Steve Bruce spoke very passionately about Jones, about they'd kind of been in talks for quite a while. It was someone he really wanted to come in. Do you feel like this appointment's undermined him then? And in which case, if it's not Bruce's choice, whose choice is it? Has Mike Ashley potentially pulled out this brilliant coach from Bournemouth from nowhere?
Well, I don't know. You could look at, two of the more influential players in our squad now used to play on Bournemouth last season. Maybe there was a recommendation from Wilson, potentially. I don't know. And to be honest, does it really matter? As long as we win a few games, Bruce is going to be the manager until the end of the season, and Ashley's not going anywhere. If we don't sell some players, just looking forward to hopefully playing a bit better football. That's kind of all I've really wanted for the last couple of years, apart from obviously the multi-million pound
Mbappe deal.
Yeah, he's still on the watch list though.
Yeah, I'm sure he is, mate. You put the Xbox back on, mate. Ted, you mentioned Tommy earlier. Was a word that come out your mouth. Does that mean you're already endeared to your new manager?
It's just safer than pronouncing a surname.
You could have called him Thomas, no?
Nah, Tommy will do.
Tommy all day. What do you make of the midfield pairing at the moment? It seems real favouritism for Jorginho and Kovacic. I know Kante's been kind of carrying a bit of an injury and just come back. Do you feel like that's the favoured two?
Yeah, it is. I think my opinions on that midfield duo are already widely known. I'm not a fan of having two holding midfielders like that. I just feel like it's a job that can be done by just one of them. And for God's sake, stop making Jorginho take penalties. He's not good at them.
Having just scored in 2 consecutive games.
Yeah, I know. But they're still not good penalties.
Who do you want to take the penalties then?
Oh, that is a good question. I believe Mount's currently the other player. He's the second line. So, yeah, sure, let him take some.
Mason Mount, who missed the penalty against us in the League Cup.
Mate, honestly, if we rule out any player that's missed a penalty, we'll be here for years. We've missed plenty. But yeah, Jorginho, he did one without his little skip, and I think actually cheered when I saw it. But then he was back to it again at Sheffield United. And as soon as goalkeepers realise that he's hopping before he shoots, then he's done, because those penalties are not good. But yeah, I don't know where Kante's going to slot in. He looks a bit rusty when he got some minutes. And wasn't quite at it. Lost the ball quite a few times. Wasn't quite with it. But yeah, Kovacic and Jorginho are definitely two of his favourites at the moment, sadly.
I know what you're going to say when I ask you this about Jorginho. There's a double game week coming up, potentially, if you win on Thursday night.
No.
He's 4.7 million, right? So you can leave him on the bench most weeks. And in terms of his minutes this season, he's basically contributing an attacking return every 2 games. Now, I know there's the unpredictability of that because of the penalties, but he's got 7 attacking returns in 1,080 minutes. That's quite impressive.
Yeah, it's lovely. And I'm sure we'll keep winning penalties as well. And he'll probably keep taking them.
Then buy him.
Well, no, because the problem is there's so many midfielders at the moment in Fantasy Premier League that I want. There's so many places there where you can get points. And in terms of forwards, there's not a huge amount going on. So I'm not keen to play free forwards. I always try and play free defenders. So I want my money in midfield at the moment. Because there's the likes of Salah, Son, Fernandes. You've got Sterling there, Gundogan, Grealish. You're going to have De Bruyne coming back soon.
Miggy.
I just, of course. I can't fit in a Jorginho there at all. And if I'm looking for someone cheap, I'm probably going to be looking at a slightly better player. Because I'm worried, Kante comes back, who drops out. Havertz starts playing, or Pulisic starts playing, Ziyech starts playing. Does Mount then get pushed back to midfield? If so, then who drops out?
Players do you own? It's ridiculous.
We've got plenty. Not even including the ones on loan as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's another podcast.
Insane, the size of your squad.
All right, let me give you a hypothetical scenario then, Ted. And actually, you can give me the answer for this afterwards as well, Si, if you want. Hypothetical scenario. You're free hitting in game week 26. You've got a double game week of Manchester United at home and Liverpool away. You have to pick one Chelsea player in your free hit team. Pick one.
Oh, shit. Do I, though? Do I have to have one?
Jorginho.
That's could possibly purely be the only reason because he's not a defender and cheap.
Right. So that's what I'm
But
saying. So there is a case
you
to
don't
have him.
you don't have to have a Chelsea player though.
No, of course you don't.
So there's so many other options there at the moment.
So the answer would be is you hate that double game week. Your advice currently would be don't have a Chelsea player.
For that double game week, for a free hit, then yeah, probably. I don't see myself getting a defender for that double game week, so no. But outside that,
flip it on its head before we get Si's answer. Then you're building towards a bench boost. You're going to wild card in game week 25. Does that change the answer?
Very possibly. Then I'd start looking at defenders because it looks like that's going to be a reliable source of points at the moment, even with the tougher fixtures. As much as it pains me to say it, Rudiger does look decent.
Why does it pain you?
Yeah. Because I've seen him make mistakes so often, and in my heart, I want to see Zuma and I want to see Tomori. Obviously, Tomori isn't an option anymore, and I want to see Thiago Silva. And I want to see these players. I've seen too much of Christensen and Rudiger recently. He's done very well in the last few games, and long may that continue. I just spend each week thinking that this is going to be the week that he reverts to making some errors.
Okay. Rudiger or Azpilicueta, if you had to be pinned onto that, because Azpi is always popular, isn't he? Because he's always capable of popping up with a goal and an assist as well.
Yeah, with that little goal he got where he stormed up on a counter-attack, I haven't seen a centre-back move like that in a while. But yeah, I mean, he's the perfect for that sort of position because he wants to get forward a little bit. He's great for that sort of overlapping role. But I actually can't remember his price off the top of my head, but I know it's not going to be low. And I wouldn't be that keen.
5.7.
Okay, right. Yeah, that's probably a bit too much for me, to be honest.
Rudiger now 1.1 cheaper.
Yeah. I'd take the penalties there, to be honest.
So basically, it's Rudiger, but you don't want it.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I mean, James could well be a great option. I'm just not quite sure how this Hudson-Odoi situation is going to work out. Yeah, I don't want to spend ridiculous amounts of money on a defender that I can't see a huge amount of attacking returns from. Some, but not a load.
So, are your thoughts on Chelsea assets?
Are we still talking about a free hit team? Because they were the most boring answers. I want to know what's going on with Pulisic because he's obviously worked with Tommy Tuchel before. Why is he not in the team yet? Is he not fit? Like, I'm just waiting for him to get fit because I love him as an asset, and I'd pick him in a free hit team. You've seen what he's done to Liverpool like last season against Man United as well. I think if he's played in the right position, and if it's on a free hit, you're probably going to have money to burn. So make him your fourth, fifth mid if you can, fourth probably. Why is he not?
Especially when he's tucked in as well behind a striker, not having to be forced out on the wing. He could do a job there. I'd love to see it. Yeah, so he's had a couple injuries. He's had COVID. Recently, he's been left out because of, I think all that was said was family issues. But he is now back in training. So I assume he will be available for the FA Cup, and I'm sure he'll be available for Sheffield United. Do I have faith that he'll play both games though?
Yeah,
really.
I've got an addiction to that, man. Every time I see him play, I'm like, I need to get him in my team. I think I've owned him once this season, start of the season, I think, or a couple of games into the season because he was injured at the start. But yeah, all it takes is like one game. I'm like, oh, takes. He's
one of those flair players, isn't he? Those exciting, the ones that can explode. I just love to own those players.
I would have had him game week 1 if I'd known he was fit.
Yeah, definitely. I think
but there was too much doubt about it, and I've never gone back to it because I've never been convinced about what you've been doing offensively. As twice you mentioned Sheffield United, it's easy to mix up with Newcastle. If you like your teams in stripes, by the way, Ted, but we'll forgive you. You've already beat them. You don't want to play them again, do you?
No.
What do you want to see as the combination now? Not necessarily because I realise at the moment it's changing, and I think that's kind of the message here. That we don't actually know what Tuchel's going to do next in terms of consistent selection. But if it's going to be this system, what do you want the front three to be?
That's a tough question. I personally really like having Ziyech in one of those roles because he's the kind of guy that can pick locks against teams that sit deep. And at the moment, if he's not going to play Mount deep. I think Mount needs to be somewhere in that team. So does that mean he has to take the other slot behind a forward?
Probably. Which means no Pulisic.
Exactly. And no Havertz. And, there's so many. This is why I hate playing a back three, because there's so many slots I want to fill in with good attacking players, and I can't. Werner hasn't played as a sole striker under Tommy yet. He's played alongside Hudson-Odoi, which is sort of close enough, but not quite there. I don't know if he's in his plans at the moment to play as a sole striker when we have a 3-4-3 going. So I don't know if I can say him as the striker. I want to play him behind a forward as well. So I'm just running out of slots here, and I don't see how you can fit everyone in. I really hate it.
Do you think Werner's been a bigger disappointment than Aubameyang this season? How would you rank those two as like FPL letdowns? Because they've got to be right up there.
I'd say Aubameyang's been bigger purely because I was bigging him up so much pre-season as a newly classified midfielder. I thought it was going to be absolutely immense. But no.
I'm going to throw Doherty in there as another.
Well, you're bringing me into the conversation.
Well, he deserves to be in that conversation of most disappointing FPL options this season.
Not really. I don't think his ownership was ever high enough to be worrying about it. Whereas, even like game week 5, but admittedly he did get the 2 goals against Southampton. A lot of us were going, do you know what, this week he's the best option. And he did return twice, and then you expect him to go off on a run. And has he scored in the league since?
He's on some massive no goals in 10 or something ridiculous.
But he played well on Sunday night, didn't he?
Yeah, he's been playing so much better recently. His movement looks incredibly better. It's just he needs to sort his feet out. He needs to sort his finishing. He's clearly still lacking some confidence there. Quite a few times he's having to try and dig it out or whatever.
But he's looking for that in the way he was playing.
No, I think it's
good question.
That is a good question. I think there's a lot of confidence issues going on, and I think a different manager may have been able to rectify them quickly, but sometimes players just don't work because they're coming into a system that doesn't really suit them. Is that Lampard's fault, or is that more the board's fault for signing someone that possibly isn't going to be able to slot into a vacant slot straight away? It's the same with Havertz. I think he's been an even bigger disappointment. I was expecting so much from him, and he has looked awful. He had a great game against Barnsley in the cup where he scored a hat-trick, and we'll play him again, I think, after this pod goes out. But other than that, he's been pretty dire.
They were both. You look at the transfers, and they both look like really solid deals. So I don't know whether it was the fact that those deals presented themselves, and you almost couldn't say no to them.
It fully is, because teams didn't have money in the summer. So we had because we were coming in off the ban with the Hazard money, with so much going on, with a couple of sponsorship deals with Nike that went through and whatever. Suddenly we're looking fantastic, and we're in such a strong position in the market. And we did make a conscious effort to make the best use of that. As a result, we've signed some players that are, or could be, generational talents. Might get a bit of...
You will.
Yeah, it's a bit much that. But you know what I mean? They're superbly talented players. They're superbly talented, and they could go on to be world class, like the sorts that are talking about as the best in the world in their position and whatever.
I have no doubt on Werner's ability. I certainly do hold doubts on Havertz, but on Werner, just from watching him against Tottenham in Champions League last year, I have no doubts on his ability. I could told you after 45 minutes, there's a real good player in there. Does something happen though to strikers when they join your club, mate? Because the list of names that have played up front for you in the last 20 years, if we removed obviously Drogba's brilliance, at one stage or another, you could put them in sort of world 11s and stuff, and the majority of them have failed. Is there something psychologically behind playing up front for Chelsea that we can read into in any way?
There must be. There must be, because the list now is just absolutely gigantic, going back however many years. There's definitely a lot of pressure that comes from the fans in that if you don't perform, it's immediately, oh, here we go. It's another Torres, it's another Shevchenko, it's another Crespo, whatever, going back. And yeah, they definitely feel the brunt of that force, and they don't get much support. But surely there's got to be, the amount of managers we've gone through, there's got to be one there that can fix these problems, and I haven't seen it. So what the problem is and what the solution is, I've got no idea. It seems a complicated one.
Any thoughts on that, Si?
I was hoping you'd say Crespo because I loved him as a footballer when he came to
super forward.
I just quite enjoy when like Chelsea sign all these old kind of forwards that you know that's like they got a list of players you think I'd love to see him in the Premier League, and like sooner or later Chelsea usually go and buy those players. Chelsea forward.
As you forget, isn't it, like Radamel Falcao, Samuel Eto'o? I mean, these were world-class forwards, not a joke.
Have any of them scored a better goal than Papa Cisse at Stamford Bridge? That's the question. That's the real question.
Interesting you bring that up, Si, because that's the last time you left Stamford Bridge without getting beat. That's 2012.
I know. I was
two great goals, though.
I was there at that game.
And I think you finished above Chelsea, but they did something a little bit more important a couple of weeks later, which I have no warrant to particularly bring up. But it helped that Drogba was just centre forward that day. That's all I was saying.
It's funny though. Look, I remember that because I went to the game. I remember that quite specifically, that period of time. Like we were obviously playing well and we were kind of up there in the league, but we just come off the back of a couple of good results and we were just like very relaxed. And I'm not saying that we're in the same situation now, but if we've got any chance at all at the weekend, you think it's, the players just have a little bit less pressure on them. And you'd think we've got a couple of players in our team. I'm not saying everyone's going to score a goal like that again, but, there might just be, the pressure might just be on Chelsea a bit more, I think, this weekend. Whereas if that Southampton result had gone a different way, might have been a bit more in trouble, but I don't know. We're not at the prediction stage yet of this pod, are we?
No. We'll get there, but I will ask you for one now, Si. So let's say that Brighton lost last night, which we don't know.
We do know because we've got a double in 26.
No, we don't. We don't know. That's only if Brighton won, mate. Stop assuming. Listen, the listeners take everything quite literally, mate. So we don't know. Let's just say you haven't got a double.
Right.
Let's say you're playing West Brom in 27, Villa in 28. Brighton in 29. The Villa's at home as well. It's a nice little run where people might want to come off doublers and head towards teams who might have a blank.
Yep.
Similar to the question I asked Ted, if you're pressured to name one Newcastle player, is it obviously Callum Wilson or is there someone else that you would recommend?
I think Ted earlier mentioned about formations. I think Wilson, you don't want him to be your main striker. I don't think you even necessarily want him to be your second striker. But as a third striker option, because if Newcastle score, he's fit, he's got a very good chance of getting returns. And when he gets returns, he usually gets bonus points as well. And I know a lot of people talk about avenues in FPL, but he's on penalties if we ever get penalties. I know we got one against Spurs and he took that one away. That's highlight of the season for me. That was perfect.
Oh, yeah. Another one, something nearly went out the window, mate.
Yeah. So I'd say you've got to put Wilson number one. I think, Miggy, his price, he's 5.3 now, I think, which is an awkward one.
St. Maximin's 5.1.
I just want to see it a bit more from him. And I want to see how he fits in and whether Bruce is brave enough to play Almiron, St. Maximin, Fraser, Wilson and Willock, because I'm calling him out now. He's been a coward to this point and not played them. He's had opportunities. He's had a few opportunities to play them all and he's not. One being against Southampton. So I'd say Wilson's still number one. Can't really touch our defence. I don't trust it, particularly with the way that we're kind of progressing the football a bit more and we've got too many injuries. So yeah, I'd say Miggy's moved up to number 2 ahead of Almiron.
Almiron is 5.6, Almiron.
Is he? Yeah, that's a bit much. But I was looking at the player comparison stuff between Almiron and St. Maximin on their Playmaker app. Shout out to Neil.
Hello, Neil Murray. Yeah, another Newcastle fan.
Yeah, he's just outperforming St. Maximin if you look at the averages over the season. I know he's played more and St. Maximin's had COVID issues, but higher on everything apart from, I think, XA, slightly lower than St. Maximin. So all round, you're just getting that consistency. I might go for him. But to answer your question about Newcastle going forward, there's like 2 chunks of fixtures. Well, really, there's that one chunk of fixture and there's an easy get out route, I'd say, like game week 33, we're Liverpool away. And then it's Arsenal at home, Leicester away, Man City at home. And then for the last 2 games of the season, we jump back on Sheffield United at home, Fulham away. And a problem I've had over the last couple of weeks is bench points. Just a nightmare benching players. And
we've all had that.
If that continues, I genuinely think having a cheap-ish option in a Newcastle player that you can chuck on the bench and they're pretty much nailed on to not get any points, with the upside of potentially getting points in those better fixtures.
Is the answer then, because what you're describing to me, I'll say it, to me sounds like Jamal Lewis at 4.2.
Is he 4.2 now?
Yeah.
I had 3 Newcastle players at the start of the season. 4.2. Wow.
So's Big Tasty Jamal Lascelles as well, but he's injured at the moment.
He's playing better. Why not? I mean, what are your other options at that price? You've got Kilman, who's 4.41, I think. Is he still? I think
Kilman's 4. Might have gone up, but he was 4. Mitchell's in and out the Palace team, isn't he? So there's nothing. Yeah. Dan Burn is possibly going to get a run for Brighton now. It's the same price, 4.2. So those are probably the options you're looking at in that value. I think Lewis for wildcarders.
Yeah.
If Newcastle do have a double in 26, Lewis at 4.2 could be quite interesting with a double of Wolves and Brighton.
Yeah.
I've sold that to you, haven't I, Si?
Oh, I'm thinking about it. I honestly, I want to clear my bench out. I'm done having money spread around. I know, no one's got any money. There's so many poorly performing premium assets at the moment. Everyone's got some cash in the bank, but I'm either going to put Souček in every week or get rid of him because I keep benching him. I benched Calvert-Lewin last week. Just can't be dealing with it. And so I think from that point, if you're in a similar position or you just hate having benching headaches, a couple of those Newcastle players might be able to sort of help you navigate the remaining fixtures.
Ted, any thoughts on Newcastle assets?
Yeah, I hadn't actually really thought about Lewis much, to be honest. And at that price, I'd definitely be interested. For me, currently, I'm building towards a bench boost at the moment. So my money's horrifically spread around my team, and I absolutely despise it. But once I start moving it out again, then I'll be looking at Lewis. Wilson will always be of interest to me because he scores goals, and I love a striker that'll score goals. I was hoping Mitrovic would be that guy for me, but sadly no. But outside of that, I buy St. Maximin regularly, and he always gets injured within 3 games, so I'll probably try and avoid that now.
Feels good though, doesn't it, Ted, when you buy St. Maximin?
Doesn't feel great when he gets injured, which you warned us into summer would happen with him.
Yeah, but it's not about that. It's when you buy him, it feels like, I like that shit.
It's exciting, you feel like you're going to, being a bit different, and he always feels like he's going to pick up points. And he does. In the first sort of 2 games or so, you will get points, but then that injury always comes without fail.
So he's just started his first game for ages, Ted. He assisted at the weekend. Is he returning against you on Monday, is he?
I'm going to say no. I fancy us to keep a clean sheet, to be honest.
It could be interesting on that side, Hudson-Odoi and St. Maximin both out there, if they both end up on the same flank. It'd be interesting to see if Hudson-Odoi would stay quite as high, if that's to be the case, because the threat the other way is much bigger than what any of the other 4 teams have offered.
It's brave to make predictions about our lineup.
Do you think
that's part of the point, isn't it?
Do you think he'll put 2 men on him, though? From what you've seen about tactically, does he? Because that's the kind of secret to St. Maximin, really, is if you leave him one-on-one or let him roam around and do what he wants, he can terrorise you. So I don't know whether you've seen enough of Tuchel to suggest he might do that.
I really do not want to try and predict him much at all because it's always going to blow up in my face. But I think once you got like Azpilicueta there covering right centre back, I think you've always got a backup option if needed.
I'd fancy St. Maximin against Azpil.
Yeah, he's not well. He's helped now that he doesn't have to run the line as much. He was starting to look a bit tired and slow, but when he can sit a bit deeper and take his time a bit more, I think he'll do all right. But it is going to be an important battle down that side, keeping him quiet, making sure that Wilson doesn't pick up space and all of that. So we'll see.
I would be surprised personally, and I'm trying to work through game weeks without using any chips, except I might use a triple captaincy if something falls nicely, but I'm not intending to use the wild card. I don't see me investing in either of you. In an odd way, I might be more likely to invest in Newcastle come 27 if Newcastle have the blank against Brighton. in game week 29. Whereas if we're heading that way for yourselves, Ted, I'd see Liverpool ahead in game week 29, and I think, well, I'm not sure. I'd be more interested in the defensive assets, and I'm not sure I'd be bothered about getting Chelsea defenders into to cover that particular game week if you ended up with 29, which, I mean, we assume you'll beat Barnsley tonight and you'd therefore have a double. But I think you kind of summon it up by saying there's so many players in that team at the moment that don't know if they're going to play from one game to next. For those who are heading towards a bench boost, almost unless you're going Mendy, Rudiger, Azpilicueta, possibly Jorginho, then you're guessing. And you're probably better off without.
Yeah, you're determined to make me say that Jorginho's an option.
Not at all. But listen, you've got a guy who's cheap as, if you're bench boosting in game week 26 and Jorginho is fit, for me, has to be an option at that price at 4.7 if he's on penalties. Has to be a consideration.
I think the only place, I think at the moment, that's where I'm going to be putting my money, though, is into making sure I've got all the midfielders I want. The only way I can see that changing is if you do have sort of the likes of Harry Kane coming back for your double. For people not bench boosting, he could definitely be a triple captain option, I think, that week. I can't quite remember what his two fixtures are, but I remember them being pretty good.
He's a potential option for me, depending on what the second fixture is, yes.
Yeah. So in that case, when you're looking at moving your money up front, then yeah, maybe you are looking for a cheaper midfielder. But outside of moves like that, my midfield's already packed, mate, and Jorginho is not coming into it.
All right. Duly noted. Guys, thanks very much. Pleasure. Enjoyed that thoroughly. Let's do predictions before we finish, guys. Ted, actually, there's one more thing. Ted, you said you listened to Clash of Correspondents on Tuesday.
I did, yes.
So
I heard our second Chelsea fan bigging us up.
You heard what Gary Robertson, is my cap player and our Man United correspondent, said in terms that he makes you favourites to finish second. Thoughts on that?
He's more optimistic than me, I'll say that. I think he also said that we're pretty nailed on for top four. I'm not sure that's the case. I think we will get top four, but we're definitely not nailed on for it. I wouldn't put us ahead of United. And I think getting ahead of Liverpool is always tough over a season. So yeah, I'd put us fourth at the moment.
Leicester ain't going to go away this year either, I don't think.
There's so many teams that could finish in that top four. So many teams.
He's probably the four we've just mentioned, though. It's probably between them.
Well, I think Spurs can still climb.
Not you as well.
I'm afraid so.
Listen, you played us last week. Do you really believe that, mate? No, you don't. You're being nice.
No.
You're on my podcast and you're being nice.
I do think you've got the players, though, to climb up. And Mourinho, despite all of his negative tactics, he can occasionally do well for your team.
What you mean is we've got two players. Anyway, we've only got Manchester City away this week, so we can talk about this next week. Right, go on then. Let's do correct score predictions. Ted?
I'll go 2-0 Chelsea. Fairly safe.
Well, seeing as it's a double game week and no one really cares about Newcastle or Chelsea assets this week, I'm going to say the Toon are going to win 3-2.
Nice. We'd love that.
Love it.
We'd love that. Do you know what? If you win 3-2 on Chelsea on Monday night, I'll buy you a T-shirt that says we won 3-2 at Chelsea. Genuinely, I will do that. I'll make it happen. I will go 2-0 as well. I definitely don't see this being a battering in any way at all. If Wilson is fit, I would probably expect Newcastle to score, actually. But if he's not, I'll probably go 2-0. But I've been really impressed with what I've seen the last few weeks. So something is happening, and it feels like for the first time in ages, you've got a bit of positivity. I think it's something actually within the team on the pitch. You can say, all right, I can identify with that a little bit and have a little bit of pride. It does help that the bottom three are so far away from you as well, admittedly, which gives you the respite.
They're watchable. I'd say that now. I
agree.
They're watchable. Like you can. I haven't dreaded watching the last couple of games. I'm intrigued by Willock as a new face and what he can bring, and I'll watch the game. We'll see what happens. But 3-2, put some money on it.
Good luck. I obviously hope you win to keep Tottenham's faint Champions League hopes alive. Guys, next week's Clash of the Correspondents will be Bradley Parker, Andy Martin previewing Wolves and Leeds ahead of Leeds double game week in game week 25. And tomorrow, full Planet FPL podcast. No games to review, but plenty of strategy to discuss once we know all the permutations from these FA Cup results. Me and Sudge are on very different paths, most likely, so we'll be tackling it from different directions. We'll have a look at what those 26 and 29 fixtures look like and what it will mean for us. You can follow Ted on Twitter at Rotation FPL, and you follow Si at FPL_Fitler. Good luck for the weekend, guys. Good luck on Monday to the two of you. Cue music, please, Mancho.